My golden brother slept with my fiancée and got her pregnant. My family disowned me for being angry, and after 5 years of silence, he's now in a coma, and my mother wants me to take responsibility for his child as the father. 5 years ago, a month before I was supposed to get married, my entire life collapsed in the span of an afternoon. I was 25 then, engaged to my high school sweetheart, Karen. We'd been together since junior year, survived college together, and everyone, especially my family, saw our wedding as inevitable. I thought we were unshakable. Turns out, I was wrong. One evening, Karen sat me down at my parents' house. My brother Chris was there too, and so were my mom and dad. I remember thinking it was strange that everyone looked so tense. Then they told me Karen and Chris had been sleeping together for months, and she was pregnant. My brother had confessed to her after our engagement that he'd always had feelings for her, and apparently that was all it took. She said she'd realized she felt the same, and the two of them started something behind my back. I found out that they'd even flirted at family gatherings while I was standing right there. I sat there numb, while they explained that they were coming clean because Karen was pregnant and they wanted to be together. I tried to reason with her, begged her to come home, told her we could work through this, but my mom, my own mother, cut me off and told me flat out that Karen and Chris were going to be together, and I needed to accept it. She said, "She's pregnant, and you have no right to bother her in her condition." My dad at least looked ashamed, but Mom was practically glowing. She'd always wanted a grandchild and didn't care how it happened. She fought me on everything, even justified what they'd done. Within a week, Karen moved in with my family. Her own parents had disowned her for cheating, so my parents took her in. My mother said it was the right thing to do. The wedding was canceled. My parents covered the cost and acted like I should be grateful. I stopped speaking to all of them after that. I couldn't look at any of them. My brother, my mom, my ex-fiancée, they'd all destroyed something I didn't even realize was fragile. The only one who ever tried to reach out later was my dad, but I ignored him too. For 5 years, it was silence. I went through therapy, tried to rebuild. I can't say I'm over it, but I stopped waking up angry every day. I heard through distant relatives that Karen gave birth to a boy, and a DNA test confirmed it was my brother's. Eventually, they got married. I assumed they were living there happily ever after. Until last week. Out of nowhere, I got an email from my mother. "Urgent," the subject said. Against my better judgment, I called her. She picked up crying, and my first thought was that something had happened to my dad. But then she said it. Chris had been in a hit-and-run accident. He was in a coma. Critical condition. I didn't know how to react. I still loved my brother in a complicated, painful way. I thought maybe she just wanted to let me know or ask me to visit. That would have made sense. But then she said something that made my stomach drop. She told me she wanted me to step up, to be there for Karen and her son. I asked what that meant, thinking she just meant emotional support. But no, she said I needed to move in with them, to take Chris's place, to be their provider, their protector, their stand-in father. I laughed at first, thinking she couldn't be serious, but she was dead serious. She said she was too old to take care of them herself, so it was my responsibility now. My responsibility to care for the woman who cheated on me with my brother and for their child. I lost it. I told her she was insane for even suggesting it, and that she had no right to expect anything from me. She started yelling about family duty, and I hung up, blocked her number. Again. I tried to go about my day, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. I felt bad about Chris. I don't want anything bad to happen to him, but the idea of taking his place, it made my skin crawl. Later that night, I called my dad. I thought maybe he'd talk some sense into her, but even he said she was right to expect that from me. He told me that family steps up when it's needed, and that I'm blood, no matter what happened. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Even after everything, they still saw me as a backup plan, a replacement, not a person. For the last week, I've been avoiding everyone. I feel guilty, angry, and weirdly sad all at once. I haven't gone to see my brother. I just can't. It feels wrong to show up there when my mother's already imagining me sliding into his life like nothing happened. I feel like the bad guy for saying no, but I also know how twisted their request is. I've barely slept. I can feel that old depression creeping back, the same one I fought so hard to escape 5 years ago. I haven't told my friends because it's too personal, but I need perspective. Reddit, am I the asshole for refusing to go see my family or step up for them after everything that happened? Update, I've decided not to visit my family, at least for now. My anxiety's been through the roof since that phone call, so I'm back on my medication and trying to stabilize. The comments and messages I got after my post were overwhelming in the best way. Strangers reminded me that I'm not crazy for setting boundaries. My friends told me the same thing when I finally opened up to them. They said I did the right thing, that I'm putting myself first for once, after years of being treated like an afterthought. They're right. My brother and Karen have each other. They always have. When my world fell apart, no one was there for me. Not my mother, not my father. I was alone. So no, I'm not going back. I blocked my family again, and I'm sticking with it. I feel awful about what happened to Chris. I don't wish him harm. I hope he recovers. But I can't go back to being their emotional punching bag or the convenient second option. I'm focusing on healing again, maybe starting therapy back up. It took years to crawl out of that dark place. I'm not going to let them drag me back. Not this time. After I posted that first update, I told myself I was fine, that I'd moved past everything, and the storm had finally calmed. But the truth is, I wasn't fine. Not even close. All those old wounds started reopening, and I could feel the same bitterness crawling back up from the pit of my stomach. I've started thinking seriously about seeing a therapist again because I'm not handling this as well as I thought I was. Every day it's like I'm back to being that 25-year-old kid who lost everything in one afternoon. 2 weeks went by with barely any news about my brother. Then, through a couple of relatives, I heard that his condition hadn't improved at all, still in critical care, still unconscious. People from all over, family, friends, old neighbors, had dropped by the hospital to see him, to comfort my parents, to support Karen. Everyone except me. I stayed away. Not because I didn't care, but because I knew what would happen if I showed up. And as it turned out, I was right. My relatives started reaching out, asking if it was true that I told my parents my brother deserved what happened to him. I was floored. Apparently, my parents had been telling anyone who visited that I refused to see them because I said this was karma for what they did to me 5 years ago. I couldn't believe it. I would never say something like that. And the fact that they would invent it just to turn people against me, it made me sick. Thankfully, a few of my relatives knew me well enough to ask first instead of just believing it. I told them the truth. I hadn't said anything like that. My parents were twisting the story again, like they always do, to make me look cruel. And for what? Attention? Sympathy? Power? I don't even know anymore. I was disappointed, but not surprised. They've always had a soft spot for my brother, even when we were kids. I was the quiet one, the responsible one. He was the golden child. But this was something else. It felt like they were trying to destroy the only connections I had left in the family. The aunts, uncles, cousins who'd stood by me through everything. I started wondering if maybe they couldn't stand seeing that I'd rebuilt some kind of family without them. A few days later, my mother showed up at my house. I'd blocked her on everything, so she must have decided showing up in person was her only option. When I got home from work, she was sitting on my front steps like she'd been waiting for hours. For a split second, I thought about turning around and driving somewhere, anywhere, but she saw me before I could. I didn't let her inside. We stayed in the front yard, and at first she was calm, too calm. She made small talk, asked about my job, my apartment. I played along because, honestly, I was exhausted and didn't have the energy to start a fight. But then I asked the question that had been eating at me. Why was she telling people lies about me? Why was she trying to make me the villain again? At first, she looked startled, then defensive. I told her I'd never wished anything bad on them, and that all I wanted was peace, to move on with my life. I said that after everything they'd done, it was hard to even think of them as family anymore. She listened quietly, nodding like she understood. But the second I said I didn't want to talk anymore because I was too drained, something in her snapped. She raised her voice, right there in my yard, loud enough for the neighbors to peek out their windows. She said she'd only come to apologize, but after hearing me disrespect her again, she'd changed her mind. According to her, she and my father had been forgiving me for how I'd reacted after Chris's accident, and now I was proving how ungrateful I was. I just stood there, stunned. She went on to say that I should be thankful I still had a family, because she'd been close to cutting me off completely and making sure everyone else did too. Then she said something that stuck with me, though not for the reason she hoped. She said, "You didn't even sound sad when you heard about your brother. You were cold, indifferent, as if grief had a specific tone she could measure over the phone." I told her she had no idea what I felt when I got that call, that I hadn't stopped thinking about him since, that I never wanted any of this. But she wouldn't hear it. To her, my refusal to step up was proof that I didn't care, that I was the selfish one. When she started yelling again, I was done. I walked to the door, told her I was going inside, and asked her to leave. She tried to follow me in, but I shut the door and locked it. She screamed from outside that I'd face the consequences for this, whatever that means. I stood behind the door shaking, not from fear, but from sheer exhaustion. I'm so tired of fighting ghosts that refuse to stay buried. A couple of days later, my dad started calling. Different number this time. I ignored the first 3 calls, but by the 4th, at 5 in the morning, I picked up, half asleep. He didn't even say hello, just started yelling. Called me ungrateful, heartless, said he wished I'd never been born. I didn't even get the chance to defend myself. He ranted for 5 minutes straight, then hung up and blocked me before I could respond. I sat there in the dark, phone in my hand, trying to figure out what I'd done this time. Now, almost a month later, I found out my brother's finally improving. He's awake, responding. I'm relieved, truly. I don't want him to suffer. But hearing that news didn't bring me peace, just emptiness. Because I realized that even if my brother recovers completely, nothing about my family ever will. They've become strangers to me, people I can't trust. I've made peace with that. For now, I'm focusing on myself, trying to breathe again, to feel normal. Maybe therapy will help. Maybe time will. I don't know, but I do know this. I'm done being their scapegoat. I'm done being the replacement son. I just want to live my life, quietly, freely, far away from them. And for the first time in years, that thought doesn't feel like running away. It feels like freedom.